like to welcome Councilmember Peralez. Give us updates.
Thank you, Dee. Yes, I have about 15 minutes. I apologize, I came from one event and then I'm off to another. But thank you to the traffic management staff for welcoming the D3CLC into your center and giving us a tour. I was able to take it when we did the grand opening of this, and I was extremely impressed, as I'm imagining most of you are, on the facilities obviously that we have here. You kind of think about, yeah, why don't we have this, right? Like this, we're a big city. I mean, we got a ton of traffic, a lot of population. You know, it's surprising that it was just, you know, a year ago or so, right? A year and a half ago that this opened up. As you said, you've had the space, but this is really a state-of-the-art facility. I was just talking to the captain. I don't know if you got to mention it, but the police department, and it's called, what's the center called there?
It's the Police Command Center.
Police Command Center has an ability to tap in as well, to be able to get these feeds and to have some authority over it as well at the police center. And so, and that's new as well. And so really our use of technology has improved, and so it's impressive. And thank you for allowing us to see that. Sorry to hear that you are occasionally forgotten on some of the upgrades. So we will attempt to do a better job at remembering that you are here. So I wanted to take a moment to introduce our newest staff member, Gabriela Soto.
Hi.
Some of you may recognize her from participatory budgeting. She was one of our delegates, served throughout the entire process there. Was really engaged with the community and the district. Excited to have her on board. She's a D3 resident herself, a graduate of San Jose State, and San Jose High, right?
Yeah.
San Jose High.
Yeah.
So, you know, a D3 through and through, and we're excited to have her on board. She came out of an internship from the housing department. And has taken over housing on our team, which was a role that Jean and sort of was covering before, and so we were happy to have now someone that we can be able to rely on in regards to housing, as well as with participatory budgeting, because someone that has experience. We're going to be engaging and beginning that up again, round two, $250,000. So hopefully those of you that participated last year will participate again. We now have a bigger budget, an opportunity to get even more projects, hopefully more people engaged. We're in round two here, so we're learning from the first round. We did get District 5, Councilmember Carrasco is now going to be doing participatory budgeting this year. So it's, you know, it's picking up steam a little bit. She'll be able to take up some of the lessons that we learned last year. One fortunate aspect that we did get as well, I requested through the budgeting process for $50,000, both for myself and anybody else that wanted to do PV, a budget to actually run the program. So last year we were kind of begging the mayor's office and the city manager's office, and then we were taking money out of our own office budget to pay just the standard bills of hosting a website, for things like renting the rooms or, you know, purchasing some food to have at the meetings. So some basic expenses, and then as well we wanted to start to do with PV is create a role within the city manager's office that would kind of be the long-term view, where participatory budgeting is really it's a responsibility annually for someone at the city, not necessarily somebody in a council office or the mayor's office, because that's ever changing. So then that way any council member that wanted to participate could have that entity there at the city. So that money will also be used for that. So there may be a you know, contractor or a position of sorts through the city manager's office this year, maybe somebody within the city or somebody without, but we're working on that and hopefully going to really improve participatory budgeting. The other thing we're doing right now is we're continually applying pressure on city staff, and as you know, it takes time once you approve projects to actually get them completed. Sometimes painfully long, but we are applying a lot of pressure because we want to be able to have at least a few of the projects that were approved from last year to be able to showcase and show off during the PV process this year, and we're hoping before the end of the year. So in that December timeframe, November-December timeframe, when we have people submitting ideas, we want to be able to show them a completed project. So we're going through with staff right now and putting pressure and trying to find out where some of the lowest hanging fruit would be. I've stressed the fact that soccer nets should not be super hard to get.
My project.
That was you.
Yeah,
My project, by the way.
What's the holdup on that?
That was smart.
What is the holdup?
The
Oh, come
holdup
on.
is really just somebody being able to purchase something, but purchase it legally, right? Like through, we have, I wanted to order something for the office, right? We have a set catalog that we're
Procurement
going to.
department.
Yeah, so this is a small project, so that will happen, right? Purchasing some nets. But because it's the city, right, we have to be extremely fair in anything that we spend money on, right? We can't have I'm just going to go to jail. I always go to jail for these kind of things, right? We just can't do that. We can't do what the sheriff did, right, with the cameras in the jails, right? Which is, I'm just going to go to Costco and I'm just going to buy it. That's how business works in the private sector. But the reason that it doesn't work that way in the public sector is because then you get corruption, right? It allows for that ability, although it works faster, right? It allows for that. So it's a slower, right, more public, more open, process. So.
Christina, I want to help. I thank you for your help too. Yeah.
Liz.
I'm sorry. It's Christina who's helping us.
Yes, Christina.
But what I want to tell you is that we want to be part of that. We want to be part of it. We want to be there. We want to deliver the nets. We want to be there because that's our hook in it. And for participatory budgeting, we can go to our residents and say, hey man, look what happened, look what you did, and you can do it too.
Absolutely.
It'll help us with getting more delegates too.
The delegates that were in charge, or the submitters of the projects that were awarded, that one person will be a key point person for that project as it moves through the line. At the end of next week is what I'm being told, there will be the access through the city's online portal through Public Works Department on anybody being able to look up where the project is as far as in the city process, who or what department and what individual within that department is the key point person.
For the participatory budgeting.
For the participatory budgeting projects, yeah. So that should be live next week is what I'm being told. That is the monitoring system that we were trying to make sure could happen for each of these PV projects, so then that way anybody in the public can go online and monitor where's the project at. So
our concern is that the amount of money that they said to us that it's going to cost to do the project will be more than now that they're implementing it.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you know if that's talked about? How might it be handled?
no, this is going to be us
But
tripping over each other. Yeah, moving forward, right? I mean, it's just that's part of a reality is that we try to do in the city when we ask for budgets and we say what is give us an estimate on what things cost. What I've come to find in the last year and a half, right, is that they're never perfect.
Okay, so I'm sorry for this conversation, but it's really important to us who participated in this. That's why we want to be part of the process and say, they say, oh no, it's going to cost us this much more than that. But maybe we may want to choose, okay, what should be done then? If you only have this much money, then maybe we can go back to us, since we worked it out, since we talked to people, since we put those things up on the ballot.
Absolutely. Again, that's why each project, that lead person who submitted that project is going to be in line with this.
I hope you can get in contact with them.
We will. So it may take some of you to help us figure that out, because we did just find out that the software we were using
It didn't collect all of that information.
didn't
We
collect that
know that.
information.
We understand. We talked about that within our
Yeah.
process.
But there's-
we know that the next one didn't
Yeah.
happen that way.
Yes, yeah. So, but there's 8 projects we should be able to figure out who
Yeah.
by asking around, and
Yes.
so we will link that project to that person.
Thank you.
So, and again, it is really, I mean, we are tripping over ourselves as we're doing this, right? So we're just kind of trying to, some of these things we just don't have answers for, and we're going to figure out those answers along the way. I want this to be successful, as all of you do. And we're going to stay, in communication as we go through it, and hope to be able to come out on the other end as whole as possible.
Yeah, and like you said, we want to promote it. I think that's our way of outreach. That's our
Absolutely.
way of going out there and reaching out to our neighbors and saying, hey, I know you're, and then we want to say to those that were on the ballot, say, well, yours didn't make it. This is the reason why. We want to come back to them and say, but you can, and then since we haven't done it, but you can submit it again.
Yeah, and there's more money this year, so yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's what we want to be able to do too.
One more question on that. Is there a list of all of the projects and how many votes they each got? Because we've gotten asked that a lot. How do we find out how many votes our project got if it didn't make it? Do we have a total?
That is there.
That data is available, yeah.
It was it's out there, we have it, or
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
else.
that data.
I'll
is
send it to
available.
you, Kimberly.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, other than that, in regards to updates, I did want to give you guys a little bit of picture, kind of what's going on in council, and then what's to come. So, we've got some burning issues in regards to housing and homelessness, as always, right within the city right now. But we did have a very successful vote last night in a council meeting that went until 12:30, 12:45-ish. I don't even know. It was late when I got home. So. I forgot that I didn't have my car. That's how late it was. I walked down to the garage and realized that I hadn't driven to work. So we, fortunately, Chappie, Councilmember Jones gave me a ride home. But we approved a very controversial interim housing project down on Evans Lane in District 6. The argument was not necessarily not to do it. The argument was, do we do long-term permanent supportive housing, or do we do short-term interim housing, something we can get people housed, 100 people next summer, something we can get up to 900 people housed by 2021, 22. So I think that, and the direction that I wanted to go was the interim short-term housing. That ended up prevailing, and that gives us bridges, which we need in order to house people in the interim, that's why they call it interim, until we can actually get some of these long-term permanent projects constructed. We have a number of them underway. We have a lot of sites actually in mind for permanent supportive housing. Unfortunately, there are not a lot of sites in mind for short-term interim housing projects. So that's where this project was very key to be able to approve for the short-term project.
And we'll be able to learn from this. Also, the city's not running it. It's
Abode services,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
It's going to be, they're like manufactured homes. It's kind of like nice, very nice mobile homes, being able to house six people,
Six
six people
people.
each. Little community room. They each have their own individual door to get into their spot, and there'll be how many total throughout the whole site? 17 or something.
Yeah, 17
Like
of
17
them.
throughout the site. Other amenities as well in the area, but being able to sort of house people quickly in a manufactured home that you can put out there, and eventually we can move to another area. And so that's actually what was approved last night, was that the goal is that at a 10-year mark, we're going to start the process to actually make this, or to develop on the site for a permanent supportive housing project, and by 15 years hopefully get there. And then take these modular units and put them somewhere else, and be able to, but because we're more than likely always going to need some sort of interim, short-term housing.
but there will be supervision there 24/7.
Yeah, Boat's going to have security on site. They're going to have 4 staff, 1 supervisor, 2 specialists that are going to work with the individuals, and then 1 maintenance staff, is my understanding, a full-term maintenance staff. So they'll have that on-site supportive staff to be able to help these individuals, because these are, as we know, individuals that are coming straight off of the street. I can tell you that Donner Lofts, I got to do a tour there. There's a lot of people that are now being housed in Donner Lofts that came straight off the street, some right here from St. James Park. I was there for the welcome home ceremony for the 2nd resident at Donner Lofts. Very, very happy, man.
Where's that at?
Oh, Donner, am I pointing the wrong way?
On the other side of the garage.
No, it's right here. Right? No, here. Here.
That's the one where the Donner House used to be.
That's where the Donner House used to be all built in. Yeah. So,
Place.
so and that's a long-term permanent project. So
How many units in that one, do you know?
Donner Lofts has 40, I think, that are for supportive housing for formerly homeless, and then it's got a staggering kind of a different affordability. But for specifically for homeless, I believe it's about 40. I could be off. So
And the
I'm-
staggered ability means low income?
Low income housing, yeah, not as, so the
Low-income
supportive housing for the most vulnerable,
Yes.
those that maybe right off the street, that's that level support. And then you go up to supportive housing, affordable housing, people that may have vouchers, they necessarily might not have been homeless for the last several years, but they've been in that bracket of low income, very low income.
Are these folks like triaged into these places? Because some people just might be chronically homeless, like with a low-paying job, or someone's got really severe mental illness.
They are
That
triaged,
they,
yeah.
okay, so
Yeah.
so they're aware of the different levels of
Yeah.
their capabilities.
Yeah, there's and that's how we're housing people right now. I mean, it's some of the units that we have coming up that are that are for fully supportive units, meaning that they have the most support possible, those are specific for people with the most needs. So there are certain people right now that are on the street that don't qualify because they're actually kind of high functioning, and maybe they're more capable of getting a job, and they don't have a mental illness, and so they don't qualify to get into some of these fully supportive units.
Do they have to have a mental illness to get into these?
That's just part of the qualification. Like to your point of what unit. So to get into that fully supportive housing units, any of those, yes, you don't have to have mental illness, but you have to qualify. There's actually a statewide, I think it may be nationwide, like a system where somebody, I don't know, I don't recall exactly what it's called, but you input all the data on what's an individual is, an assessment tool, and then it spits out sort of a number, and depending on what number they fall into, tells us what level of housing support they may need. Then they fall into that housing, and that's how the housing gets built by public dollars. And so when it's built for a certain range, so essentially a certain assessment score. And what the county is focused on now is housing the most vulnerable first, because what the realization has been is that the most vulnerable are actually who are utilizing the most city services. It's actually costing us more to keep them on the street rather than it would be to just give them housing. So that was kind of the analysis that was done over the last several years, was a realization of that fact, that we can actually, if you wanted to break it down to just dollars and cents, which is, it's unfortunate because we're talking about human lives here, but in the end, if you wanted to break it down to dollars and cents, it's actually cheaper to give some of these people housing versus allow them to just stay homeless. So that's what we're doing, and by no means are we, are we there to a solution yet, because last night was 101 units, right?
102.
102 units with 4,000 plus homeless in the city. So I mean, we have to continue to chop away.
You have to start somewhere.
Yeah, and if we don't get projects like this do fail, or if we do continue to kick them down to where we're saying, well, we're not going to have this till 2022, we're not making a dent in the problem now. So I was happy that passed. There was a ton of opposition. This is where I think the CLC could potentially come into play for assistance with future projects, especially ones around the District 3. There was a lot of opposition, as there, I think, logically you expect with any project where you're going to be housing people that were formerly homeless, people that may have mental illness. Not in my backyard, right? The problem is, if it's not in your backyard, it's probably not in anybody's backyard, right? That's going to be the same mentality.
The mentality is it should be, it's already in our backyards.
It absolutely is. Yeah, it's in your front yard on your street, or maybe it's in another yard in their own housing unit. So that is where, though, we will run into issues of where support from this org and from members here can show up and say, hey, we get it, and we want to be conscious of the fact that some of these people need a lot more support than others. We want to make sure, right, things like security on site, and when we're doing everything we can to make this a successful environment for the individuals that are being housed. But what I'm not comfortable doing, what I won't do, is just say, no, not in my backyard. Abode Services, after last night's project, gave me a call this morning and wanted to already talk about a couple others, one of them being at First and Gish in my neighborhood, Rosemary Gardens. And I said, right, what better place, right, than to put my money where my mouth is, to say, yeah, I mean, that's the point, right, is it's, there's a new term, it's, I think they call it YIMBY.
Timbies, yes.
Yes, in my backyard. So,
There's a couple out there.
Yeah, but the reality is right.
It's a perfect place. It's you have the transportation. You got county there, county school. I don't know if they're going to help out, but counties. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, but anyways, we need a lot more, right?
Yeah.
We need a lot more. So as these come up, especially in District 3, and especially if it's in and around your neighborhoods, we want you to be a part of those conversations. We want you to come to those meetings. We want you to, to be able to speak out, right, in support, right, and be able to be with us through those projects.
Well, they're getting started on the one on 3rd now, or 3rd and over by St. James Park, right? So community meeting coming up in a couple of weeks.
Community meeting, yeah, 2nd Street, yeah, but yes. Yeah.
2nd Street, yeah.
In between.
By next to the armory.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do want these people housed, and I hope that they're housed in spreading out throughout the city. Because I know District 3 has a lot of those.
The most.
The most, and that's fine as long as they're supported, but I want to hear somehow either they pay us, they pay District 3 because we have so many,
I'll
which
take that.
I know they won't, but the point is that I want it spread out throughout the city.
Yeah.
That's what I want.
So logically, and I don't disagree with that, but logically, there has to be a higher concentration in certain areas because of certain things: access to public transportation, access to services, and the type of environment that is actually there in existence. So it's really hard, like in District 2 or 8 or 10, as much as I'd love to get some affordable housing projects in Johnny's district. He has a good argument, right, that there's not many places out there where it actually fits well. But for me, that just means, well, we just got to look harder and find the ones that it does fit well, and actually,
Because we have it all.
and actually be able to get some there. But in the end of the day, right, it's never going to be equal, right? But it could be more equitable. And absolutely, District 3 has the most and continues to actually approve and support the most. And I just, in last night, the council member for District 6 was, although we were all in unanimous support of asking our housing staff to find an interim solution like this and bring it to us last year with an urgency. By the time now that it's made it to us yesterday, we ended up with 3 council members, including the council member of the district, not being in support of it. And I think that, we can't have that, right? Because if we're really going to get to these solutions, and if every council member in their district just decides to sort of back off on a project and no longer support it, we're never going to get to the solution. And so,
is there a possibility as District 3 builds this one out, and let's say it's a real positive result and becomes a model, does that attract additional funding perhaps from other sources to?
Yes.
What I'm getting at, it's in our best interest to make this as successful as possible, to be a model for ourselves and other people coming to look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So for one, it could attract more dollars from state, federal grants to be able to do this other places. But it also attracts dollars. So say, for instance, right, with like Donner Loft and this 2nd Street project, say we actually do begin to see that shift in and around St. James Park. And we go in there as we're trying to do right now and redevelop it, revitalize it, put in 11. If 10 years from now St. James Park looks completely different, the other investment that pours into the area is just regular investment, right? Businesses, market rate, and all, before you know it, you have this great changed, dynamic area with a lot of investment, public and private. Meanwhile, all right there living in the same community are people that 5-10 years before were homeless and now are in a project where they've been supported, to some of them, hopefully even moving on and out of those projects. It's, it is our only path forward to success, and we have to make it successful. The other answers that I get are things like, why can't we just send people to Gilroy, right? Those are not answers, right? Like, those are not solutions. We're also not going to solve it by not doing anything. We're also not going to solve it by sending it to just another district or another neighborhood. Some of the struggles that I deal with our community members in District 3 are those that are more inclined to say, I have an issue on my street and I don't care if it just moves to the next street. Well, I do, because I represent the entire district, right? And I'm a voice for the entire district and the city for that matter. So I'm not comfortable with let's just move it from one street to the next street to the next street, and then maybe it comes back. For me, right, it's a permanent solution. How do we actually get somebody housed? How do we actually make it to where it's not a problem for this street or any of the streets? So again, it's not going to happen overnight. Probably going to be a task that even the next council member works on. But we want to make a huge dent in this. You're going to have an opportunity in November to vote on a housing bond that the county's working on. So there's a lot of effort right now on actually saying, let's make a dent on this. Let's not just throw a little water on it. So.
Raul, I worked at Agnes Developmental Center years ago and saw a lot of this transitional housing, and also during the mental health crisis in the late 70s and 80s. And a lot of them were moved out in the community, a lot of them into Victorian homes and things. The problem with that system is, and I hope that with the BODE, that the city or the county will also monitor them better, because a lot of the breakdown with these transitional homes in the past have been the operators of the facilities, where they have completely taken the money and have ditched the people living in there. Do you have checks and balances for BODE as far as, like licensing, or, like they do with hospitals and stuff?
Yes,
Sure that
couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, and Gabby, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was going to say, in the memo that was provided by the housing department, it actually did state that if a BODE does not comply with the lease requirements, that the city could at will terminate their agreement. So that's kind of a safety net.
So what happens to the people?
Well, we also want to make them successful, just before you go. Right? We don't want to just find somebody, their flaws, and then say we're going to cut this.
No.
But we also want to make them successful, and you bring up
as well as the program. You want to make it all successful.
Absolutely, and you bring up the beginning of this whole dilemma, which is when we did away with facilities that actually may have been able to, in a decent argument of well, we don't want to just jail people, okay, but as well as when the services like Agnus, mental illness facilities were just shut down. The reality is that these individuals went out into a community, went back to their families, in a community and families that didn't really know how to react, how to help, what to do. How do you deal with that? And we've gone through now a couple decades of that, of sort of what is the best way to do it. You can't just put somebody that has a mental illness into a traditional affordable housing structure with no support and expect them to do well, right? We can't do that. So you're absolutely right. And there have been now a lot of lessons learned, and a lot of the affordable housing, supportive housing service providers have gotten really good at that. We have actually one of the best in downtown right now. I don't know if any of you have been able to work with Path and Megan Kovar from Path.
That's awesome.
They're one of the best, and but that has come over time with sort of being able to understand what are the best ways to serve this community. So.
They have a really good track record too down in San Diego and,
Absolutely.
and LA. So.
But sorry,
So what happens to these people, say you don't want the most vulnerable, using your words, so you take them, you put them in these housing units, you give them services, so that's great, they're not sleeping on the street at night. What are they doing all day? Most of these places, they got to make their bed, they got to go out, they have certain things they have to do, so what do? They're back on the street, right?
The best thing I could recommend for anybody really is, and this will take a little bit for the Second Street one, but would be like for instance the Donner Lofts, would be to take a tour, right? And maybe that could be something the CLC does, right? Is to go and view one of the facilities, because that's actually one of the lessons learned, right? Is that if all we did was provide the housing, and then there's just this idle time all throughout the day, right? Somebody with a mental illness or a drug or an alcohol addiction is going to probably go out and hang out and do drugs or alcohol. We have to, build them, and during that time during the day, not just provide a bed, but provide the services. So that's why they're called supportive housing, because it's not just housing. It has to come with the wraparound, fully supportive services, which means you're going to have mental health physicians, right, that are going to be able to monitor them, or a caseworker that gets them the services they need. If they're skilled enough and capable of being able to get through job training, they'll do that. That's what they'll work on. If it really is catered to whatever the individual what level they're at, what neither. If it's drug or alcohol addiction, then maybe it's drug or alcohol classes that they're now being required to go to and having to work on that. So it's catered. It's fully catered to what this individual may need to make them successful and remain housed. The end goal is somebody that remains housed successfully. So it's by no means just you're housed and you got nothing else to do all day. The best way I describe it, so like the Second Street project, is that the access tower, built, and it's got a rec room and a pool and maybe a little movie theater set up. It's got cool amenities that the residents there benefit from, right? Well, this facility, the one on 2nd Street, is going to have cool amenities that the residents there are going to benefit from. They're going to have a psych center, or a center where they can go to get that service. They're going to have a job computer center, right, where they can go and work on resumes and be able to work on that. They're going to have, the quiet rooms, or rooms for somebody, especially with a mental illness, right? So we're now building facilities that have amenities that cater to people with disabilities, people with mental illness, drug addiction, and so it's definitely evolved from, you know, Agnews, where my aunt also worked, you know, to nothing, right? I mean, as an officer, I worked with families where I'd get a call out and they'd say, I've been trying to help my son for years, but he's literally, I mean, you know, he's stabbing, like literally I'd be there because their son stabbed them, right? Like it was just how mentally ill, and they literally are saying, I know he's going to be homeless, but I can't do it anymore. And then that, you know, it's because it's super, super hard. And so, and that's the same thing that we've learned with a lot of the supportive housing providers. I mean, it's been a progress, and I don't think by no means that we perfected it, but we're absolutely now utilizing tools that have proven success, like this PATH model of, you know, proven success in San Diego, in Denver. We're now starting to use those same models of proven success, and I didn't take this lightly. I looked into this pretty heavily before even running for council last year, before we're approving these projects, to see, are we really doing as much as we can to make these successful and help not just get somebody off the street. It's about actually helping improve somebody's life. It's about helping improve the community around.
Well, we all have a part in it.
And we all have a part in it, yeah. So.
Well, thank you. It's 8
Yes,
o'clock,
8
and we
o'clock.
do have to let them go home.
Yes,
so
yeah, too. Yeah, sorry guys.
Thank you
Thank you.
for everyone here, for being here tonight. Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, great idea.
Pizza idea.
Good job.
Good idea.